The rain fell with an unforgiving fury over Mushin Lagos. It was past midnight and the narrow alleyways were silent except for the hurried footsteps of a woman named Gladys Ogundaipe, who clutched two swaddled baby boys to her chest. Her heart pounded, not from the storm, but from what she was about to do. She stopped behind a shuttered buka, lifted the lid of a green metal trash bin, and hesitated. Her hands trembled. A part of her wanted to scream. Another part wanted to vanish. With one swift motion, she lowered the babies into the bin. She didn't look at them again. As thunder crashed and lightning slashed across the sky, her mind raced with guilt, but her legs moved fast. She couldn't stop. "If I look back, I'll break," she whispered. But why had she come to this? Why had a mother decided to throw her own sons away like spoiled yam? Gladys had been a 23-year-old final-year student at Yaba College of Technology when she fell for Chuka, a smooth-talking businessman with promises as sweet as jollof rice. He claimed he wanted to marry her, that he'd sponsor her education, that she'd never suffer again. Naive and desperate for escape from poverty, Gladys gave him everything: her love, her body, and eventually her womb. But when she became pregnant, Chuka vanished like vapor. No calls, no messages, nothing. She was evicted from her hostel, shunned by friends, and rejected by family who called her ashamed of the bloodline. With nowhere to go, she lived in a wooden shack behind a petrol station, begging for gari and washing clothes to survive. The pregnancy weakened her. Labor came too early, under a leaking zinc roof, alone with rats watching. The babies were born premature and weak. She tried, she really did, but the weight of rejection, hunger, shame, and loneliness crushed her. Postpartum depression clawed at her sanity. She saw them not as blessings, but as living reminders of all she had lost. That rainy night, overwhelmed and barely coherent, she convinced herself that discarding them was mercy for them and for her. "Let them die now," she had told herself, "before this world kills them slowly." She didn't care if the rain filled the trash. She just wanted it all, everything, to disappear. And as she boarded a rickety bus toward Lagos Island, toward her old life of nightclubs and men, she smiled not from joy, but from numb relief. She thought she was free. The alley behind Abiola's closed kitchen was usually a forgotten corner of mush and damp, narrow and lined with the sour smell of decay. But this night, something sacred stirred within its filth. The moment Gladys disappeared into the storm, the skies began to shift. The rain, once furious, slowed to a whisper. The clouds parted like curtains pulled back for a celestial performance. A handful of stars appeared above Lagos, blinking like watchful eyes. From the far end of the alley, Mama Kofo approached. Her real name had long been forgotten by the neighborhood. She was just the mad woman, the one who spoke to the moon, who danced with shadows, and who always scavenged for food after midnight. No one knew her story, only that she had been like this for years. Her gown was more rag than cloth, her slippers mismatched, her breath sour from drinking sachet gin with stale akara. She opened the lid of the bin, expecting bones or spoiled bread. But what she found made her freeze. Two tiny babies lay inside, crying softly, wrapped in nothing but old t-shirts that barely shielded them from the cold. Mama Kofo blinked, unsure if the scene before her was real or part of her madness. Slowly, gently, almost like a mother possessed by a lost memory, she reached in and scooped the children out. "Shh," she whispered. "Mama Kofo dey here." She carried them to her sleeping spot, an old doorway behind a crumbling compound where torn mats and plastic sacks were spread like bedding. She placed them on the driest corner she had. Their cries sharpened, slicing through the silence of the early morning. "You're hungry, Abby," she murmured. She pulled out the bread she'd found earlier, a piece covered with green fungus, and tried feeding them. But they turned their heads, spitting it out. Frustration flickered in her eyes. "Stop crying," she snapped, gripping her head. "Why are you disturbing me?" Her voice cracked, switching between motherly concern and angry delirium. "I am your mother! I said stop!" But even in her madness, her anger faded fast. Tears welled in her eyes as she rocked them softly. "Sorry. Mama, sorry." She offered them water from a plastic bottle stained with grime. They drank greedily. The crying slowed, then stopped. Carefully, she wrapped them in spare rags and laid beside them. Rain began again, soft like a lullaby. And for the first time in years, Mama Kofo fell asleep without dreaming of ghosts. The dawn sun crept over Lagos with a golden hue, baking the muddy puddles and warming the concrete jungle. Ephraim Dorsey, a 38-year-old danfo driver, known around the area as Driver Ephraim, laced his worn sneakers and stepped out for his morning jog. Passing the back of an abandoned building, he froze at the sound of babies crying. As he turned the corner, his eyes caught sight of Mama Kofo. She sat cradling two babies, trying to rock them as they wailed with hunger. Ephraim's heart clenched. He had lost his own twin boys 3 years ago in a tragic accident. A drunken trailer driver had crushed their car along Ikorodu Road. Seeing these children nearly the same age his boys were when they died stirred something deep in him. He stepped closer. "Mama Kofo," he called softly. She jumped up, eyes wide, hissing. "You want to take my babies! You want to steal them!" She grabbed a handful of stones and hurled one. Ephraim ducked, knowing force wouldn't work. Then he remembered her obsession. She worshipped Coca-Cola the way others worship pastors. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 crumpled 500 Naira notes. "Mama," he said gently, "go buy Coke, 5 bottles. It will calm the babies." At the mention of Coke, her demeanor changed completely. Her eyes sparkled like a child's. "Thank you, sir," she said, dropping the stones. She tucked the money into her waist wrapper and danced away, chanting, "Coke, Coke, Coke." The moment she disappeared down the road, Ephraim hurried to the babies. He picked them up, wrapping them in his jogging towel. "What have you been through?" he whispered. Their eyes were red from crying, and they smelled of mildew and garbage. "You're safe now." He hurried home, not knowing what future lay ahead, but knowing without question he couldn't leave them to die. Ephraim's small apartment in Bariga was no place for babies. It was a single-room space, half of it filled with engine parts, a rusting fan, and a stack of old newspapers. But that morning, as he returned from his jog with the twins tucked in his arms, it became something more, a sanctuary. He laid them on his only mattress, their tiny chests rising and falling with exhaustion. The stench of rot clung to them, a reminder of the trash can that nearly became their grave. He boiled water on his small kerosene stove, mixed an antiseptic, and filled a plastic basin. Carefully, he bathed each child, scrubbing away the grime and the smell. Beneath the filth, he saw their faces soft, delicate, and unfamiliar. He dressed them in 2 of his old t-shirts, cut and tied like wraps. Then he dashed to the market, spending the last of his money on powdered baby formula and feeding bottles. By afternoon, both babies had eaten and fallen asleep. That evening, Adora arrived. Tall, beautiful, and sharply dressed, she was Ephraim's fiancée. Their wedding was 2 weeks away. She stepped into the room and froze at the sight of the babies. "Whose children are these?" she asked, her brows knitting together. Ephraim explained everything, how he found them. Mama Kofo, the Coke, the trash bin. She listened in silence, her arms crossed. When he finished, she stepped back. Her voice was cold. "So, you want me to marry a man who sleeps on the floor, drives a danfo, and now has 2 unknown babies in his care?" Ephraim stood defensive. "They had no one, Ada. I couldn't leave them." She scoffed. "You're not a savior. You're a driver. You don't even have enough to feed yourself. Now you want to raise someone else's burdens?" She paused, eyes narrowing. "Return them to the woman or wherever you found them. If they die, it's not your business." "No," Ephraim said firmly. "I've already lost 2 sons. Maybe this is God's way of giving me another chance." Adora grabbed her purse. "Then marry them, not me." She slammed the door on her way out. Alone in the room, Ephraim sat in silence, the babies stirring beside him. He had lost the woman he loved, but looking into the eyes of those 2 fragile boys, he made a vow. "I may be broke, but I won't let you break. Not again." 2 nights after Adora walked out, Ephraim awoke to a burning heat on his arm. One of the babies, the smaller twin with a birthmark shaped like a leaf on his shoulder, was lying against him, sweating profusely. The boy's breathing was shallow, his lips dry, and his body shook with fever. Ephraim jumped up in panic. The second boy wasn't much better, his temperature soaring, his tiny limbs jerking every few seconds. Without hesitation, he wrapped them in a clean blanket and ran into the night, barefoot, catching a passing Okada to the nearest clinic. The nurses admitted the babies immediately, checking their vitals. After a brief examination, the attending doctor shook his head grimly. These children were exposed to serious bacteria, likely from being abandoned in filth, he said. Their intestines are compromised. They need emergency surgery and a referral to a specialist hospital. How much? Ephraim asked, clutching the bench for support. For both babies? The doctor sighed. You'll need about 1.3 million naira, and that's if we start treatment now. The number knocked the air from Ephraim's chest. He didn't even have 13,000 naira, let alone over 1 million. That night, as the babies were kept on oxygen in the emergency ward, Ephraim walked the streets in circles. The faces of his lost sons came back to him. Then the words Adora had spat before leaving. You want to marry into suffering. By morning, Ephraim made a decision. He went to Alhaji Umar, the man who sold second-hand buses along Ekoton Road, and offered to sell his danfo, the only thing putting food on his table. Alhaji examined it and smirked. 450,000 naira. That's all it's worth. But I bought it for 900,000 naira, Ephraim protested. Then go and find a buyer in heaven, Alhaji replied. Crushed but desperate, Ephraim accepted the offer. He added another loan from a friend, sold his generator and sound system, and by the end of the day, he scraped together the full payment. He returned to the hospital, trembling as he placed the cash on the counter. Do whatever it takes. Please, just save them. The surgeries were performed overnight. One baby's condition worsened mid-operation, but stabilized just before dawn. For 2 weeks, Ephraim slept in the waiting room, surviving on biscuits and tap water. But when the doctors finally told him both boys would live, he fell to his knees and wept his tears not of sorrow, but of hope. He had lost his fiancée. He had lost his livelihood, but he had saved 2 lives. 2 months later, the twins were discharged from the hospital. Though still small and frail, their eyes shone with life. The doctors called them miracles, saying they had beaten odds many full-grown adults couldn't survive. Ephraim named them Levi and Lionel, names that meant joined in harmony and young lion respectively. You were born in trash, he whispered to them, but you will grow like kings. Back home in Bariga, Ephraim faced a new kind of struggle. Without his bus, he had no income. But feeding 2 hungry babies wasn't optional. He began waking before dawn to break stones at a construction quarry in Ohota, a job that paid little but kept them fed. When he wasn't working, he was changing diapers, washing bottles, or rocking a baby back to sleep. Some days the boys cried in shifts. One would stop just in time for the other to begin. Exhaustion wore him thin until one day his mother, Mama Dorsey, a short, silver-haired woman from Ijebu Odi, arrived unannounced. She knocked once, opened the door, and gasped, Ephraim, why didn't you tell me you had twins? He explained everything. She listened, then simply removed her headscarf and got to work. They're yours now, and that means they're mine too, she said, bouncing Lionel gently. Mama Dorsey was old school, tough as granite, and warm as a kerosene lantern. Within days, the boys began to flourish under her care. She made herbal teas for their coughs, wrapped them in old Ankara shawls, and sang Yoruba lullabies that made them sleep instantly. With his mother at home, Ephraim began working longer shifts. Though the quarry paid him peanuts, every naira went toward baby formula, clothes, and school savings. When Levi and Lionel turned 3, they already spoke better Yoruba than most market women. They called Ephraim Baba and Mama Dorsey Mama Mama. Despite the hardship, love filled that tiny one-room home in Bariga. No one had much, but they had each other, and sometimes that was enough. By the time Levi and Lionel turned 8, their bond was unshakable. They did everything together, ate from the same plate, finished each other's sentences, and even caught colds at the same time. Life was still hard in Bariga, but love had made their home warm. Their father, Ephraim, was their hero, and Mama Dorsey, their compass. The twins began primary school at Alumo Community School, a modest institution with broken windows and creaky chairs. Ephraim paid their fees from his stone-breaking wages, sometimes going hungry so they could wear shoes and carry second-hand school bags. The boys understood the sacrifices. While other kids grumbled about school, Levi and Lionel ran toward it with hungry hearts. They knew that education was their father's dream, and now it had become their own. After school, while other children played, the twins changed out of their uniforms and carried trays of bananas to hawk on the dusty streets. Their father had bought a 3,000 naira batch of ripe bananas on credit. "Sell them all," he said, "and you'll eat like royalty tonight." And they did, shouting, "Banana sweet like sugar," from one bus stop to the next. They dodged okadas, negotiated with stern-faced aunties, and smiled at tired bus drivers who bought out of pity or hunger. People began to know them, the banana boys of Bariga. What started as a necessity soon became a small hustle. Every evening, they handed over the proceeds to Ephraim, who began saving small amounts in a metal box under his bed. "For university," he would whisper. "Even if I die, you'll go to school." And though money was tight, there was no bitterness in their home. Instead, there was laughter, prayer, and stories before bed. Ephraim told them tales of bravery, of ancient Yoruba warriors, and of a certain day when he found two boys crying in a trash bin. He never told them it was them, not yet. "Why do you love us so much?" Levi once asked. Ephraim paused, staring at their faces. "Because God threw me a second chance, and this time, I caught it." Levi and Lionel sat quietly on the wooden bench outside their school, each holding a white sheet of paper like it was a funeral notice. The letters were big and brutal. Fail. Their WAEC and JAM results were a crushing blow. They had studied under candlelight, sold bananas every evening, and sacrificed weekends just to prepare. But still, they had failed. When they returned home, Ephraim was cleaning the kerosene stove. He looked up with a smile, but his sons' faces told him everything. "We failed you, Baba," Lionel said quietly. Levi added, "We tried hard. We really did." Ephraim didn't flinch. He stood up, walked to them, and placed his calloused hands on their shoulders. "You didn't fail me," he said, his voice steady. "You've been walking miles under sun and rain to sell bananas. You've been doing what grown men can't. School isn't the only way to make it. God will open another door. You hear me?" That night, the boys couldn't sleep. The darkness pressed down on them like heavy cloth. But Ephraim's words echoed in their minds. The next morning, over a breakfast of bread and akara, Levi spoke up. "Let's expand the banana business," he said. "Let's use the savings to start buying in bulk." Lionel nodded. "Let's become wholesalers." Within a week, they gathered their savings and bought 3 full baskets of bananas directly from a farmer in Mile 12. They stopped hawking and instead supplied market women at discounted prices. Word spread quickly. Their hustle multiplied. In 3 months, they were handling deliveries from Agege to Ohodu, riding borrowed wheelbarrows and striking verbal deals with traders. By the time they were 20, the twins had stopped pushing bananas and started distributing fruits in bulk: bananas, pineapples, oranges. Their small corner space turned into a full fruit depot. They rented a warehouse near Yaba and hired 2 Okada riders to do neighborhood deliveries. With steady hands and strategic thinking, Levi managed logistics while Lionel handled sales. Their first signboard read, "Double L Fruit Suppliers, Sweetness You Can Trust." And though they didn't wear university ID cards like their peers, they were earning more than many graduates. From failure, they built a ladder of fruit and faith, and at the top of it stood their father, proud, watching his sons become men. Years had passed. The Double L Fruit Depot in Yaba had grown into a buzzing business hub. Truckloads of bananas, pineapples, and oranges arrived weekly, supplying vendors across 5 Nigerian states. The once barefoot twins, Levi and Lionel, now wore pressed shirts and ran operations from an office above the depot floor. Their warehouse had a proper signboard, CCTV, and even a chilled drinks corner for customers. Life was good, but not for Gladys. The Lagos she had once conquered with heels and hips had changed. Time had not been kind. Age had weathered her beauty. The streets had devoured her energy. She could no longer dance in clubs or seduce men for rent money. Now in her mid-40s, with no savings and a long list of illnesses quietly destroying her body, she was reduced to begging favors from shop owners and sleeping behind market stalls. Her beauty had faded, but her pride hadn't. One scorching afternoon, with just 200 naira in her pocket and hunger clawing at her belly, Gladys stood at the gates of a massive fruit warehouse. Her eyes scanned the trucks and uniformed workers. So much fruit, she thought, even a few pineapples would save me. She approached a young worker at the gate. "Please, I want to start selling fruits," she pleaded. "I have no money to buy. Can I take on credit? I will return in the evening and pay after I sell." The worker shook his head. "Company policy, ma. No credit sales." Gladys dropped to her knees. "I'm begging you, please. I just need help." The young man hesitated. Then he pointed toward the depot entrance. "Wait, the bosses just arrived. Talk to them." She turned and her breath caught in her throat. Two well-dressed young men were walking side by side. Something about them, something deep in her spirit felt familiar, but she shook it off. She didn't know them. Couldn't. When they reached her, she bowed low. "Please, sirs, I want to start selling oranges and bananas. I have no money now. If you give me fruits on trust, I'll return the money this evening." Levi and Lionel exchanged a look. Something about this woman, her eyes, her voice tickled a buried memory. Levi nodded. "Give her what she wants," he said to the worker. "Let her go and sell." Gladys beamed. "God bless you. Your parents must be proud. For your age, you built something amazing." Lionel smiled. "We have a great father. He gave everything for us." As she walked away with her tray of fruit balanced on her head, the twins watched her silhouette fade into the crowd. They didn't know her. Not yet. But fate was about to pull off the mask of the past, and everything they thought they knew would change. The week passed like any other: orders, deliveries, and bustling customers. Levi and Lionel barely remembered the tired woman who had pleaded for fruit at their gates. She returned daily, selling fast and paying back as promised. The workers nicknamed her Auntie Orange. She never caused trouble. She just sold, bowed respectfully, and left quietly before sunset. But everything changed one evening. That day, their father Ephraim visited the depot with Mama Dorsey. The twins welcomed him with laughter, guiding him through their warehouse. "You built this," Levi said. "Every bruise you took, every stone you broke, it was for this." As they spoke, Gladys returned with her tray, sweat-soaked and weak. A staff member told her the twins' father was visiting. She approached Ephraim, bowing low. "Sir, you must be so proud of them." "I am," Ephraim said, smiling warmly. Gladys hesitated. "I wish I had children like them. Maybe I wouldn't be begging." Ephraim looked at her closely for the first time. Something about her face, those eyes, sent a chill down his spine. "Madam, do I know you from somewhere?" he asked. She laughed awkwardly. "I used to be in Lagos clubs a long time ago. Maybe you saw me somewhere." But Ephraim wasn't convinced. "Where are you from?" "Ilorin," she replied quickly. Lionel stepped forward. "Ma, have you ever had children?" The question cut her like a blade. Gladys opened her mouth, then closed it. Her knees buckled. She reached for the wall to steady herself. "Yes," she whispered. "I did. Twin boys, years ago." The world stopped. Ephraim's eyes widened. "What happened to them?" She hesitated, then broke. I left them in a trash bin. It was raining. I was scared, alone. I thought death was better than suffering." A long silence followed. Lionel's voice trembled. "What were they wearing?" Gladys, now sobbing, replied, "One had a white wrapper with yellow stripes. The other, a faded green t-shirt with a hole near the neck." Ephraim staggered backward. He remembered those exact rags. Levi gasped. You're our mother?" Gladys dropped to the ground, weeping. "Please, forgive me. I didn't know what else to do. I was broken, alone, no family, no food, no hope." Tears streamed down Lionel's face, but his fist clenched. We almost died. I know, she said, crawling toward them. I've paid every day. No peace, no love, just pain. Please, my sons. No, Levi said quietly. We already have a mother. Just then, Mama Kofo entered. She was now Martha, healthy, lucid, and smiling thanks to months of treatment the twins had provided. She saw Gladys and froze. Her eyes narrowed. I know her, Martha said slowly. That night, in the storm, she ran, and I found you. Levi walked to Martha, hugged her, and turned to Gladys. You left us. She picked us. She's our mother now. Gladys collapsed into fresh tears. But then, Ephraim, eyes red with emotion, stepped forward. Boys, he said gently. She was wrong, but God gave her breath to make things right. Lionel, shaking, looked at his brother. We forgive you, Levi said finally, but don't expect to be called mother. Gladys wept openly. Thank you. A week later, Gladys passed away in her sleep. Her body, riddled with illness, gave out. The twins paid for her funeral. At the burial in Aloran, they met their extended family. Some wept, others apologized for turning their backs on her. Oh, they returned to Lagos with peace in their hearts. Martha moved in permanently, no longer the madwoman, but Mama Martha, the woman who saved their lives. She cooked for them, blessed them, and told them stories before bed, even though they were grown. And every morning as the sun rose over the city, Levi and Lionel stood on their warehouse balcony, looking out at Lagos. Born in trash, raised in struggle, but now kings in their own right. The end. What are your thoughts on this powerful story? Do you believe Gladys deserved forgiveness, or was her fate justified by her past? We'd love to hear your perspective. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deeply touching African stories that reflect our struggles, our strength, and our redemption. Your support helps keep these stories alive. But now, kings in their own right. The end.